Another great thing about your book, the contrast, the amazing contrast between two former University of Alabama
You really liked my
quarterbacks.
book, didn't you?
Yeah, I did, because
You got
I've
it all
always been
marked up there.
like I've always been a history guy. I've always loved history, from not just sports history,
I
film
hope that
history,
this
music
book,
history. Like it's just really.
I hope this book sort of has a nice shelf life to it.
Mhm,
I think
yes.
it'll last.
Yeah, it will. It will, because it relates to the whole sociological aspect of American culture. That's for sure. And
Yeah.
it's funny, like with Bart Starr and Joe Namath, total opposites, but both were coached by Bear Bryant. And I wanted to ask you, talk about that parallel between Bart Starr representing the silent majority and Joe Namath representing the counterculture.
Yeah, I have a chapter in How Football Explains America called How Football Explains the 60s.
Mm-hmm.
And yes, Bart Starr really represented the Nixon silent majority of the 60s, and Joe Namath represented the Hubert Humphrey, Lyndon Johnson, John F. Kennedy aspect of the Democratic Party in the 60s, the counterculture, anti-war movement, although Joe Namath himself was not anti-war. Specifically refused to talk about the war in any way.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And Bart Starr, too, was apolitical, even though his father was in the military. But they came to represent two parts of American culture, the crew-cut astronaut culture and the hippie long-hair culture. But what's really interesting, Nabaté, is that, Bart Starr sort of gets the Ringo Starr treatment, like he's sort of the forgotten Beatle.
Yeah, it's crazy.
But, hey, without Ringo, there is no Beatles.
That's right.
I mean, the Beatles didn't become the Beatles until '62, until Ringo joined the Beatles, and he gave them that back beat.
Yes, that pocket.
Yes, absolutely. And Bart Starr, there was no Packers without Bart Starr, even though everybody says, well, he had Hall of Famers around him and this, that, and the other thing. He had only 3 interceptions in the postseason. 3.
Amazing.
Brett Favre had 6 in one game, my brother.
That's right, in Detroit.
I think it's St. Louis.
Oh, no, St. Louis, I'm sorry. That's right. That's right.
You have a
St.
great
Louis.
memory. I can't believe you forgot that. 6 in one game, okay? All right. Bart Starr was 9-1 in the postseason. Brett Favre is 3-7 in his last 10 postseason games.
Yeah.
So people who come to me and say, "Oh, Brett Favre's one of the greatest quarterbacks of all time," I don't even think he's the greatest Packers quarterback of all time.
yeah, and also too, he didn't win an MVP when he won that Super Bowl. It was Desmond Howard that was the MVP.
Yes, that's right.
So.
Absolutely. But getting back to your point about the two different movements of the '60s and the quarterbacks that represented them, people don't remember this important fact about Bart Starr and why I equate him to Ringo Starr. Is in that Ice Bowl game, he audibilized at the line of scrimmage.
Right.
A fullback draw was sent in by Lombardi. Lombardi was offensive coordinator of the team as well as the head coach. And he told him to hand the ball to Chuck Mersine. But Starr gets up and starts, putting his feet in the turf and seeing it's too icy and was worried about the footing. Either that, or he just said, you know what? I don't want Chuck Mersine going down in the history books as being the guy who scored the touchdown in the Ice Bowl. I want this for myself. Either way, he took it upon himself to change the play at the line of scrimmage, called a quarterback sneak. Of course, went behind Jerry Kramer and went into the end zone. And it's, of course, in my opinion, the greatest moment in professional football history.
Right.
Because, they don't score that touchdown. It's called the Tom Landry Trophy, and it's not called the Lombardi Trophy.
That's true, right? And you know what's ironic? They were both assistants under Jim Lee Howell.
Yeah, in New York,
in
right here in New York, exactly.
It's amazing. The irony is just incredible.
Yeah, it's incredible. But I always think that even though Bart Starr, represented that sort of crew cut, John Glenn aspect of the 60s, he was his own man.
Right.
He was his own man.
And Lombardi trusted him.
Yes. Again, the trust and faith.
Right, because with Bart Starr watching all the film and everything.
But interestingly, a footnote, sorry to interrupt you.
Oh, sorry.
When Monday Night Football came onto the scene, and Danny Don Meredith left, and it was just Cosell and Gifford on the Monday Night cast, Roone Arledge was looking for the third guy in the booth. Bart Starr came to Roone Arledge and said, "I'd love to do it." And they turned him down, and they gave it to Namath while Namath was still playing for the Jets. So, Namath, of course, became such a counterculture figure and an important and a cross-pollination kind of figure. He appealed to women. He appealed to African American. He appealed to, I mean, where Bart Starr was sort of like the straight-laced white guy of the 60s, you know, and the Nixon guy.
Right.
And, you know, the culture had moved on from that in 1972.
And it's interesting, he still had that mentality years later when he was hitting on Susie Colbert as well.
Joe Namath, yeah.
Yeah, Joe Namath.
Still our hero.
Exactly.
So on the website called KissingSusieColbert.com.
Oh, no, I haven't. I haven't to see that.
Search that, yeah.
Okay.
But we digress.